25 years.
No, see, they have it down.
They do. And I was actually instrumental in getting them together. So they were, well,
Sure.
we went to a dive bar at a couple places back in the day. Freaking out, just around callers.
Sure.
Running around and you expect anybody in there.
Yeah.
Running around. But you're not there. You can see it's all right.
That's neat.
Yeah.
That's neat. You know, it's amazing. I've heard more situations like that. My sister.
Good, Seth. How are you? It's so good to
Yeah.
see you. I love your sweater. Thank you. It's like bright and
My
chilly.
brother's.
Did you not sit here?
Oh, really?
No, I didn't.
My
You just
brother.
missed it.
We
I
were
know.
looking at a wild animals.
Yeah.
The last one was
Good.
eight.
Good. It's been awesome.
Yeah.
And then they dated, and of course they got married.
Easy
So,
here without the questions.
we were many years ago.
No, you beat it.
Yeah.
Not last at all.
I love it.
It's just
know,
luck
it's
of
just
the draw, right?
yeah.
You really don't know. You just don't know.
That's true. How you doing?
Morning, Scott.
Hey, how you doing there? Good.
Where's our partner in crime?
You know, Tim was here, so he's on his phone.
Yeah.
So he'll be in.
Yeah. So,
Can you show me?
so this is the source from the Apple TV.
But you need that.
They had it plugged in so they could run everything locally.
Oh, okay. So that's good to know.
Just a blessing. Just very involved. You know, he has good days and bad days. Like this game was over this weekend, and so they're watching football games and stuff. And so the next day, he was just
A little slow, yeah.
just felt better.
What can I say?
Speak better. Everything else. So I said, well, keep him busy every day. You know, with fun things. Yeah, because he's always like easy normal things. If we get something,
Hey, Tom.
Subject.
so she's, yeah, well, do that.
Some start going to this month.
Oh, it does.
Yeah.
One on the list is here, though.
It does.
Yeah, I guess it's going thinking about. I called my dad right now. Lydia sent an email last night.
It's hard to say. Well, she, is also been. I say football coach, for, the last 27 years. And, they've been on team to, my finals, and this year I think they're going to be good up to the finals. But,
Good morning.
and so he's looking forward to that. Yeah. Good morning. Thanks, Brad. Yeah, well, I know you work.
Speaking of Karen, how are you?
I'm,
That's not the new
right.
Good morning. We're going to get started. If you could grab your seat or take a seat. Probably more appropriate way to say it. So everybody's leaving? Looks like it's the end of summer now, right?
Getting cooler in the morning.
A little bit cooler at night.
next week.
And I'm sure we'll have people come on in. We had Heather and Derek out on vacation this week.
That's why I never saw
Yeah. But it's so quiet because Derek's not here.
Oh, okay.
Um,
See if I can set that up.
So thanks for being here. I see at least one new face here. Do you want to just introduce yourself really quick?
Hi guys, I'm Suraj Khadija. I'm from Keller Williamson in Florida. I joined last Friday.
Yep. Welcome. Anybody else here new? No, right? Everybody else is. Boy, it's really a thin herd. Yeah, Jose, what are you doing here?
It's just the best of the best today.
What's that?
It's just the best of the best.
There we go.
Yeah, everybody is somebody, as they used to say. Just teasing those that are watching it. Chelsea, you want to welcome Chelsea? Just you want to do your little 1 minute commercial for yourself?
What's that?
You want to do your little 30-second 1 minute commercial?
Yeah, my elevator pitch. It'll be shorter than that, actually. I don't know if all of you know yet. There might be a few new faces. I am now your Freedom Home Warranty rep. Dennis is the title. And if you have questions, I have business cards out there, brochures. The contact information for me is the same that it would have been for Dennis, phone number wise. So if you had Dennis's phone number stored, you can just change the name, or you can just think of me as Dennis, whichever you prefer, whichever's easier. And my email address is on my card by the brochures as well. If you have questions, you can always text me, call, email, and always available.
Yeah, did you give your little history last week? Denise and I were
Yeah, I can give it again real quick. So I was with another home warranty company, Landmark, prior to moving to Freedom, and I took a little bit of time off in between, had a baby, and now I'm back in full force and in better shape than ever. I've got an 18-month-old. He keeps me very busy. So yeah, so now I'm here and happy to help you with all things home warranty.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Denise, you have anything you wanted to bring up? Just to let you know, there is a CE class. This is the Moore Realty office meeting. To make sure you're in the right place at the right time. At 11:30 today, there is a class taught by Cross Country. So 1 CE hour in pre-qualified versus pre-approved loans.
I thought that was tomorrow.
That's today at 11:30.
Really?
And then tomorrow is how to read title reports.
Oh, that's right, yeah.
That's tomorrow at 10.
10 to 11.
And then on Thursday, we have a tool training on the available leads programs and how to interface and the potentials with those. Thursday at 10 a.m. And that's it for this week. There's the classes. So
That's enough.
that's enough. You don't need to be to any of them. Those are all optional classes for you to attend, but you certainly can pick up a couple CE hours this week if you wanted. So, going back to my agenda for today. That helps. Okay, so we had several things on the agenda that I put on there. Then I had an experience. Anything else before we dive into a couple things? Any other? No? All good? Okay. Then I had an experience last night that I wanted to use as a sort of a teaching moment more than the other things right now. So, last night, one of our agents was working with Melissa, and I jumped in because it was getting really weird. Not because Melissa couldn't handle it, it was just we were trying to work it together. But we had an agent who wrote an offer. Here's the offer. I blocked off the names of the not so innocent on here. And the offer was written. Let me see here. I can go do this. Oh, really quick. How do I? No, that's not what I wanted. I wanted to go to thumbnails. Now do that. Why is it doing that? Dang it.
There you go.
Do it this way. Okay. Can everybody see that? Sort of? Kind of hard to see the small print, but this offer is written 8/15/2009. Okay? So that was 5 days ago. So here it is, signed on this page. I'm going to go scroll through here. If you see anything weird you want to point out, just let me know. But I'm going to go through kind of quick. This offer comes in.
There you
See
go.
anything weird there?
Yeah. Closing
Does
costs.
that look weird?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, is that an appropriate thing to do?
No.
It unequivocally, no questions, no debate. No, it's wrong. Don't do that. Okay?
Seller initial that.
Seller initial.
Seller happens to be the agent too.
Yes.
Oh.
The owner. And the owner.
Lives in Washington. never done an Oregon deal. So do you see some potential challenges? I think good. Okay, so, okay, that's the first flag, and so that was signed, that was initialed in data along with everything else. And then, see if there's anything else you might see along here really quick. Might be one more. See
There.
one more? All curtains goes to the seller should buyers don't want to keep. Okay, does that even need to be on here?
No.
So why waste the time putting it on an offer and then bother to confuse your thing by further initialing it, okay? Does either of those constitute a counteroffer?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, the first
Not clear, but it's just.
What they are.
Yeah.
So let's keep looking, okay? I'm gonna go quick because those are the only two. Let's get
Yeah.
down here to the end,
I'm right there.
okay? Agreement to sell has been signed. So, those are the two things make this now official counteroffer.
No.
I hear, no? No, I mean, it's okay, it's no, but does anyone understand why?
They agreed it, right there.
This is an initial offer.
But they agreed to the terms
Right.
right here.
But the buyer didn't agree to any changes as well.
But the buyer didn't agree to any changes, right? So is this how you do a counteroffer?
No.
Not in Oregon, nowhere can you do that. You can't put a legal binding agreement for anything, not just real estate, in front of somebody. They make changes, initial them, and come back and call that some sort of accepted, or
Right.
those changes have been accepted.
Right.
It's not how that works. So here's why you don't. So guess why? The real reason why you don't do it this way, because now you've created confusion.
Right.
You've created questions. Make sense? Because now we're saying, is it accepted? Is it a counter? The fact you have to ask questions is why you don't do this. Because now it's open to interpretation. Okay? But you do not do this. What should this person have done if they want to change that one in the dollars? Okay, yeah, you check, seller does not accept the offer, makes the attached counteroffer. You would reject it and make a counteroffer on what? It's counteroffer form, not even a blank addendum, it's on account, there's a specific seller's counteroffer form you use, right?
Yep.
Okay, that's how you do this, and all they would have had to say is done. The day, on the 15th, the agent, the owner, reached out to,
Well, look at the bottom. I want to bring that up. So
Here?
line 504 to 506. No changes or alterations are permitted to any portion of this pre-printed format or text. That's including doing any changes in the offer.
any such proposed changes or alterations should be made on a separate document. Changes by buyers or seller's agent to the terms or provisions above. Buyers should also be on a separate document.
Yes.
Pretty clear, right? I think. Yeah, and this is just common sense, but we still see this. I don't know if Denise, I don't know if she still sees it from time to time because she sees more files probably than Becca and Denise and Heather probably see more files than anyone in the company. But it still goes on, right, Denise? It still happens. So the agent sent this over to our agent. The agent / seller said our agent said, here you go, we're going to be sending a counteroffer. Okay, so our agent looked at this and go, okay, they've accepted it. Where's the counteroffer? No response, no, for 2 days. Well, we sent it. Where? Well, I made changes to your offer. Well, that's not a counter. Right? Okay, so yesterday,
So are we representing both sides, buyer and seller?
we are not, because the agent who did this
Oh, it gets even
Used
better.
to work here.
used to work here.
Used to.
But we, for many reasons,
Other than that,
yeah. And that was on August 6th, changed to a different company. And then didn't get licensed with somebody again until August 16th. Do you see the dates on these? It was presented on the 14th. So now she's acting as a realtor, right? Not being in a company. So this poor new PB, I had to send a bunch of emails yesterday. I was like, just be aware, enjoy, right? I hate doing that. So along comes an email from yesterday. So our agent actually called and said, what the heck, what does this mean? And said, well, you're under contract. The agent's saying, no, It didn't because, I won't show you that email because it gets too, I'm not comfortable showing the name, and I see a couple places it was there. Literally sent an email to the agent, and I don't know if you got a copy, but it said to me and the agent for sure and said, that wasn't accepted because you didn't initial the changes.
Right.
So you didn't accept the counteroffer. Okay, it's getting worse, right? But then we get an email from Redfin. Because she didn't move the listing in the RMLS, it was still under my name. Congratulations on negotiating a mutually accepted contract with our client. And then here's the terms or whatever, and I come down here and I go, okay, this is a different agreement and a different buyer altogether.
Oh, wow.
Okay? So now, guess what?
There are two buyers on the same
There
property.
are two buyers on the hook. This client has two buyers on the hook, or this seller has two buyers on the hook. Now what do you do?
Punch.
The same
Punch.
agent is selling them?
What's that?
Yeah.
Is the same
It's
agent
her-
involved?
It's
Yeah,
her
it's
own
her
property.
listing and her personal property.
That's all for me.
What's that, Denise? She's
No,
a seller and the
seller-
agent, yeah.
The seller's saying that basically the seller's saying that the first offer wasn't accepted because the buyer didn't initial the changes on the sale agreement.
That's what
So
they're
they
claiming.
accepted
That was
a
her
second
email. You
offer.
didn't initial the changes in the sales agreement, so therefore it's not we didn't come to terms. Well, you signed the part where it says you agreed to the terms.
Yeah.
That just means whatever changes you added are null and void,
Right.
unless we choose to initial them.
So the seller is an agent,
Yes, a very inexperienced agent.
not for very long, I would hope.
I'm considering my own, I don't know if I've ever filed something, but I'm considering it, because this is the kind of person that gives arrested as a bad name. I'm sorry. I know that's kind of direct and maybe mean, I don't mean to be that way, but it's these kind of things that create a problem for the rest of it, because now you have a seller, she's the agent, the seller, and I have two buyers on the line. Ours was fought 4 days ahead of the other one, agreed to. So if you look at the timestamp, it's clear. It's not like there's any debate over that. So I literally had to send it to the PB and say, I don't mean to, do this, but here's our offer, here's whatever. She shouldn't have done this. She now has two buyers in place. There could be a big legal problem now. I don't know if we made a deposit. I don't know where we've done. I mean, there's some other things. There's ways they're going to be able to if the seller really wants out, if they're smart, which they're clearly not, they could probably figure a way to the deposit get there on time. They could do things like that. And it might come down to that, honestly, because I don't know if the deposit was made. I didn't even get that far into it. My point here is you have to do the correct forms the correct way. And once you sign this as a seller, accepting it, you're under contract. Right? Okay. Hopefully you're seeing the problem with what occurred here. Don't change the paperwork. I wish Jane was here. She was going to be a little late, but we had a transaction a little while ago where the agent, the PB, when is the PB doing that, who do you go to? Mm-hmm. There's no one to go to, right? You're just kind of have to deal with it. But the PB had done that. And we sent an email back saying, we do not acknowledge the changes you made on our accepted offer, just for the record. Well, you can just by initialing them. We're not going to. Well, why? Because we don't agree to them. It was that kind of dialogue, and I'm like, you can't. You signed this counter, I think is what it was. You hand wrote a change on there, initialed it, so you agreed to it and added a change. That change is not binding. We're just telling you. Well, why don't you make it binding? Well, because don't agree to the term. I mean, it just kind of I don't understand what you're saying here. Well, you have to. Says who? I mean, it's literally that kind of raising my voice. Says who? What do you mean I have to? And then I said, look, no more phone calls. Email me. Well, just call me and we can sort this out. No, email me. And why? Documentation, right? I want documentation. And by the way, whenever you're doing a transaction or communicating with anyone, you need to figure that might show up in a court of law. Okay, so be kind, be professional, just be to the point. Don't get all emotional and call people names. Just be professional and say, here's where we are. Okay?
And one thing that I do as well, if I do have a conversation with another agent, that I do, that I have another conversation with an agent, is I will actually send them an email and say, per our conversation today, I'd like to confirm, you know, whatever we
Yeah.
discussed. Just so that way it's in writing as well.
Anything else on that you wanna have questions on? Is that, hopefully that's really obvious and clear. I hope it is. If it's not, it should be now. Just don't make changes. If you need to make a change, counter. Reject it and counter with a proper form. A standard addendum is not the proper form. We see a lot of that going on out there where people will counter with those. Don't do that. Just use the correct form. Yes, Chris?
On the actual offer where the price was, I saw some numbers on a line that I usually don't put numbers on. What was that?
On the one I just showed?
Yeah, on the original offer, they had the offer price, and then there was, usually I put numbers on different lines,
I
but.
didn't even notice that.
They had an earnest money, and then after that, they had an additional sum, I think is what he's talking about. The additional provisions agreement.
Here?
Oh,
So what they've done on this, so what does that mean? Anyone raise your hand, take a shot at it?
Increase the earnest money.
They've increased their earnest money to be deposited,
But there's no date.
but there's no date. So when do they have to make the deposit? Never.
Yeah.
It's meaningless, right? So that's something, now they may have meant to put that on line 42, there's a big difference.
That's what I was wondering.
Line 41 is additional earnest money deposit. For example, I submit an offer, you accept it, I'm gonna put 3,000 in. Let's assume that line said on August 25th, I will deposit an additional $92.50. So on August whatever, you have to deposit an additional $92.50 as earnest money deposit.
So that's gonna be a $12,000 earnest money deposit where.
$12,250 in this case.
So if it was actually supposed to be the rest of the down payment, it should have been on B. So now
The rest of the down, if it was just down payment, like in FHA, it's a line below that.
Yes.
So be careful, right? Words, lines, things all matter.
That's putting the buyer on the hook to deposit an additional $9,000.
I'm gonna tell you this, if I'm on the other side of this and I wanna get out of this particular offer, I could. I know several ways I can get this one thrown out, but I'm not gonna help her, right? Our client wants a home, we're gonna try and get it, but I know, that's one right there, right? I could work on, I got, where's the deposit, where's the receipt, the deposit was due, where is it? There's all kinds of things I can do, where's disclosures haven't been delivered, it's on and on, I could do all kinds of things to try and disrupt one of the offers. The problem is, they've just now created a huge problem and a huge risk, massive financial risk. We had a client, just so you know, a couple years ago, seller refused to close it on the day of closing. Seller did, it was out in Molalla, Canby, somewhere out there, I think. And the seller refused to sign. And the seller said, okay, I'm pursuing specific performance. You've heard that term? It took 2 years, but the seller had to pay the buyer $60,000. So it does work. When you're a seller, you're locked in. And when you're a buyer, they're locked in unless you trip up. So don't trip up, right? If you're a seller looking for an out, watch for them, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
These things matter. The time frames matter, the deposits matter. If it's gonna be late, you better get something in writing. You better make sure you keep everything within the confines of the contract. Anyway, I got a field of your question, but that's the difference here. I think what they meant to do is put that a line below. Made a mistake. But I don't know that.
Might have caused a huge problem.
Because right now, there's no down payment at closing. What's that?
I was just saying that could cause a problem.
Is that, well.
Not necessarily, it could cause a problem if there was a date on line 41,
Oh, okay.
but there's no date, so it's completely inert.
Oh,
I
okay.
agree to deposit $9,000 more on some undefined date.
Okay.
Okay.
Is
Yes.
that the same thing in Washington forms, or is it just?
I don't know.
They don't have a separate down payment. 22A is
Okay.
the additional down.
Okay, yes.
Does the contract state that the seller is an agent, and what happens if
Did
the
they
seller
disclose
wasn't
that?
an agent?
Yeah. I don't know. Well, what she should have done, okay, let's talk about that. Let's assume this was done correctly. Is that a counter to disclose you're a licensed realtor? Do you want to counter doing that?
No,
No. And why?
it has to be done way before that.
Doesn't have to be done way before. Let's assume you do it after and you can't. Just want to make sure you know, do you use a counter offer? That's the question I want to ask. Why would you not use a counter offer?
You just left that open.
You left it open to be rejected.
Yeah,
Right? Why counter? Just accept the offer. Here's an addendum.
there's an addendum.
Seller's a licensed realtor in the state of Oregon. Just make sure you know. And if the buyer refuses to sign that, does that mean anything? No, you give notice, right? Yeah.
Doesn't that have to be disclosed even on the listing? that
You
they
should,
sell?
yes.
Is it-
It should, but let's assume it wasn't. I don't know if she did or not. It is, you're supposed to, but let's assume it wasn't, you wanna just clean it up.
Well,
It's just an easy way to clean up, and it's not, it's, the only reason they want that is because they don't want the public to know they're dealing with someone who's an expert in that field. That's all. So you should do it ahead of time. If you don't, you can clean it up with an addendum. It's not like you're gonna go to jail. But if you get all the way to closing, and you never disclose it, what would likely happen, or could happen? Does it negate the deal?
yes.
Doesn't negate the deal whatsoever. What it could do is expose you potentially to some sort of sanction from the state or PMAR. They didn't disclose it, they should have. And they might slap your wrist. It's not like it's gonna negate the deal. But don't. I see some questions like, should it negate the deal? No, it won't negate the deal.
So our offer was $350 for the buyer that we're helping. What was the rental offer? Just curious. Are they making?
I didn't see the rest of it, but I could easily ask for it because I think in the listing
What
office.
did it say on there?
No, it would be the last page.
Oh, okay.
They said, yeah, oh, you know what?
No,
was
it
in the
did,
email.
they
It
listed
was
it
in the
email.
email. Okay, so 350.
I just wonder if it's to the advantage of them taking the rental offer.
That's like, I didn't even think of that. Let me.
Yeah,
look
it's
at
in the body of the email.
I think you just scroll up.
I'm trying to find it without creating a big problem in my emails here, or creating. Here we go. Red.
So the one that you had pulled up before, it did say.
Yeah, I don't have it up
Okay.
still.
Oh,
Congratulations, you're. Okay, I don't wanna.
Right there.
345.
45, so it's actually less, huh?
So why on earth would you even do that? Well, there was 5,000 in closing costs,
Yeah.
so it's kind of the same offer, but.
Was it 5,000 in closing costs once it was initialed, though? Wasn't it 9?
Yes, so it's still outstanding at that, but again, this is why you don't do it that way, because of the questions it raises and the potential for interpretation. If it's done correctly, there's no interpreting. Can your words be interpreted? Yes. Can a written email be interpreted from a nonverbal perspective? Sure, but the words are there, right? Just like an offer, the terms are there. There's really no debating it.
so now look at this one. It says escrow's been opened with Jennifer at First American Title. So now they have already opened up escrow on this one.
Yeah, that's because, they're moving quick and the agent sent everything over to the other office because that's where she thinks, it's a train wreck. My point for you guys is follow the proper forms and procedures, and just do it right, and you never leave yourself open to interpretation. Make sense?
Right.
Okay, and I know we're kind of overstating it, so,
What's that?
yeah, Wendy.
And don't go on the advice of the other agent. I was talking to someone recently who was just, the listing agent was saying, I know it's new construction, but just use a regular residential form, sale agreement. And I'm like, no, use the new construction.
I want to change the input
It's only
here.
like 4, safeguards on the new construction sale agreement, so, for seller warranty and all that kind of thing, builder warranty. And so anyway, it was, she
Wanna
was
see
just
if I
gonna
can get
listen to the
sound.
other agent.
If I can get sound.
Sure.
Working with this back
He's
side
gonna
out.
give you advice that helps his client.
What's in front of us?
Okay. That's good advice. Sorry, Wendy, I didn't mean to look like I wasn't paying attention because I was trying to listen. I get a little flustered at my things here too, so, let me just, see if I got sound. Anybody want to hear anything particular?
Sure.
The Eagles. Hello.
I got, oh my gosh,
Boston more than feeling.
see if I got sound.
Rock and roll band?
Mac TV's
So
working.
sound,
Riled up the room.
where's the sound coming from?
It's the theater.
The
Are
theater.
you still airplane?
Oh, let me turn the airplay off, yeah. That's why.
Computer.
Samsung. Y'all hear that? We could play Name That Tune, but you can see the tunes on it. So I want to do something just a little bit different for a few minutes. Once in a while, I'll come across something that sort of relatable and sort of can be taught from. I want to just show this video. I teach from documents a lot and whatever, and it's only up here because I can't get sound up here, so I gotta make a change. When I was in grade school, there was a video that, or it wasn't a video. Practically a film strip. We may have been in an assembly that I saw in Central Elementary in Forest Park. And it was called, it's from 1953. So it was back when the world was real, right? And far less complicated. But there's some things that relate to this. It's called The Eye of the Beholder. And I want to play, it's 24 minutes long, which is too long. I don't want to keep you here that long to watch the whole thing, so I'll skip a little bit, but you'll get the point. Anyone ever seen this before? Really? Okay. I thought of this morning and I went, okay, this is just so relatable for so many things. And I'll jump off of here after I get through this. So, the music.
Well-known shell game. 3 walnut shells with a pea. We place the pea under a shell. Under which shell is the pea?
I love the grainy picture.
Many people have wagered thousands of dollars, so sure were they that they knew. Now, some will say under this shell. Most people will say under this shell. Few people will say under this one.
Yes, I'm going to
We
skip ahead a
observe
little
things
bit.
differently.
We observe things
Wait a
differently.
minute, let's see. So, 6 inches. And so, exactly 6 inches.
Okay, so the point here they're setting, the stage here is, I'm going to skip a little bit here, is we observe things differently from each other, right? That's the stage you're setting. I'm going to skip ahead a couple minutes because they go through the squares. How many squares do you see? If I turn it this way, you see more squares. And then, here's a block of whatever. What do you see? Do you see a face? Do you see a tree? Do you see a nuclear bomb back in the 50s?
Right.
Anyway, so, and then they come up to this.
Never see the truth. We're looking at the same scene, you and I. What do we see? An artist studio, an overturned easel, scattered paints and brushes, a knife, a woman, a man. We're all looking at the same scene at the same time. But do we all see the same thing? Do we all see the same man in the same way? In the past 12 hours, he attracted the attention of a number of people. Let's see what they beheld.
Michael Gerard is my son. Sometimes he worries me. He's so moody and difficult. But at heart, he's a good boy.
Michael Gerard, he's a ladies' man, a smooth operator with the women. He's a hood. I know a hood when I see one. A real hood. He's insane. He's a lunatic.
He's a murderer.
Just 12 hours ago,
Okay.
he didn't care if his...
So I'm gonna jump ahead a little bit because I mean there's 20 minutes left. I don't want to do that to you, but it's kind of cool to see this. So I'm gonna the picture you're gonna see here is each one of those people saw something different in this guy in this 12-hour period. Okay, so I'm just gonna skip through and then I'll get to the point here in a second. So
Alfred knew your knowledge. So she got mad and an argument started. But that didn't stop him. All of a sudden he lighted up. Then I saw what caught his eye. It was the blonde. A real good looker.
Anyway, so I'm gonna skip a little bit. He has a conversation.
He was smooth, all right. Too smooth. Why do you say he was too smooth? I know how to get around myself.
Sometimes I don't understand Michael, even if he is my son. He's so unpredictable. His he's so moody and ill-tempered. But he's a good boy.
It goes through about the breakfast. Why did you eat?
Mrs. Gerard, does Michael pay attention to you when you speak to him?
Attention? Doesn't hear a word I say.
Yeah, I remember Mike Gerard. The way he acted, who could forget him? In my business, you learn to size up a guy fast.
Okay, so again, you get the point, right?
Didn't feel much like working today. Had to run a gun on the track. I was up there a couple of weeks ago. Had a lousy day. In the feature, I had Lucky Joe. He was leaving 2 eggs for 3/4. Then going into the stretch turn, he went wide. Jock would have held him in. But I guess you didn't want him. If you know what I mean. The boys really handle that job with grease. They're smart. Big foot of artists. And you're peculiar. But you're a lunatic. Good morning.
What's that? Did you say something?
I said good morning, Clem. Good morning.
Is it? Everything is relative.
I just said good morning. This is an issue, maybe?
My good friend Coppermeyer, words do not mean the same to all men.
Is that so? So what does good morning mean? But me it means good morning.
You're skipping ahead. And then the maid up the stairs.
I don't know what can be in his mind to think such things. When he came in, the way he looked.
Alright, so skipping ahead, she's all freaked out. And this lady shows up. And then she hears,
Why do you have to be so mean? Stop looking at me that way. Let go of me, no! Oh, cut it out, I tell you! Let go of me! Cut it out, I tell you! Let go of me!
there's the scene, right, that you saw when we opened. So, and again, I'm trying to, you know, then it goes through the guy, they're kind of recapping what they're feeling, and then you go back to, here's from his perspective, okay? He is an artist.
I wanted to paint the 20th century Madonna. Mother of all men who sees her children crucified by this age.
He struggles when he gets a phone call.
Excitement to tell me she had found my Madonna. We went there the following night.
She isn't here yet, Michael, but she will be.
Okay, so there's some dialogue here where it's actually the waiter saw a ladies' man. What's really going on is this gal that he thought she was cheating on brought him here to point anyway. So I'm gonna skip ahead a little bit, in the interest of time. And he meets with her and agrees to meet, gives her a card, agrees to meet with her in the studio. And then the next day, he goes to say goodbye to his mom, or come home to his mom.
Good morning, dear.
And he's all,
Mother, I found the girl, the model to my Madonna.
Mother, sit down. You eat something.
I can't, I haven't got time.
I get up every morning to make breakfast for you. I need you hot corn muffins.
so he's just
eggs,
excited,
toasted the way you
right?
want.
When he gets in the cab, this guy sees him as a hoodlum, but in fact, he's in the back doodling, trying to get ready for the shoot, right?
Nice day, isn't it?
So see,
I was
that's
up
what
there a
he's
couple of
doing.
weeks ago.
And then
Not
he
a
gets to
rousing
the,
placement of the hell.
and sees,
With anything coming back to the face, right on the face, cold on the
whatever,
background.
and then in the lobby, he's just excited.
I said good morning, that's all. Plain good morning.
Everything is relative, Coppermeyer. I just discovered it.
I just said good morning. This is an issue, maybe?
So they have a conversation, and he goes up the stairs,
In my
and
excitement of meeting my Madonna, I even had a smile for the nosy old cleaning woman whose hobby was minding other people's business.
somebody's in there and he gets ready, she shows up, and guess what? She's drunk.
Think I wasn't coming? Almost didn't make it.
And they go through this thing, and
Yeah.
And then she's putting the moves on him, and
Some party last
I'll let her
night.
finish out here.
I kept wishing you were there. You're drunk. So what? I'm here. I thought you liked me. Why are you acting so mean? Cut it out. Stop looking at me like that.
Take your things and get out.
I like you. No, cut it out.
She walks in, and
So,
when she gets up and
now you
leaves.
know what really happened. People see what they want to see, what they're prepared to see. A number of people saw Michael Gerard that day, and each thought he saw truly. But where is the truth?
Okay. People saw what they wanted to see and what they were prepared to see, right? And so this is not an accusation. This is not anything but just, I guess, maybe a bit of a teaching moment, or even a reminding moment for me, even. Whether you're doing a real estate transaction, whether you're in a relationship, or dealing with the children, or dealing with a client, or dealing with another agent, a lot of times you will hear and see what you're prepared to hear and see based upon life's experiences, or the day you had, or other things that may have contributed to that moment. But oftentimes, if you settle down and maybe change the prism a little bit, you can see things from a little bit different way, right? So here's a guy that, murder! Well, no, just a drunk model, yeah. And so, but I've thought about back on this many times over the years. Just I've never been able to find it until grade school. It's the first time I've seen it. But it's a good reminder that when you're in a transaction, you might get a response from another agent that's based upon their experience or lack of experience or things like that. And what's also interesting too is this guy who's the character of the story, he was having his own perceptions of people. This guy's too talkative, this guy's too nosy, this is the, even a smile for the nosy neighbor. So he had his own perceptions going the other way. But when you're dealing with people in life, a lot of times you're colliding personalities together and trying to work. And that's not a bad thing. You just have to be aware that sometimes you're colliding experiences and perceptions and conditioned responses together in certain ways, and people respond in certain ways. So I guess the so what of this is maybe to, as you're going through life or real estate or anything, is sometimes it's okay to slow down a little bit and realize that sometimes we see things the way we're prepared to see them. And they may not have been intended that way. Maybe someone didn't really intend to hurt our feelings. Maybe they really didn't intend to say something this way or that way. Maybe I heard it one way, but from their perspective, it was said a totally different way. Does that make sense? And so there's something to be said about calming down, right? And maybe sometimes we take some things in real estate, certainly, way too seriously or way too personal, when oftentimes they're not really meant that way. And that's why I say on emails and things, just stick to the facts. Just because someone sends you an email one way doesn't mean it's an affront or an attack. Or just because someone somewhere says something the way it came across doesn't mean it was intended that way. Sometimes we hear it that way based upon things, right? I'm trying to think of examples just personally, I had some on mind, but I forgot them. But we're sometimes conditioned to hear things certain ways. Would you agree? And a lot of times, it's very rare. It's more common for people to try to be genuine than not. And so sometimes it's okay to kind of give that benefit out than assume that it's something different, right? And it's just interesting to watch that and go, wow, how many times in real estate or throughout the day dealing with other clients or each other or other agents that sort of plays out. That I jumped into a conversation at 12:05 with his agent, they respond this way, and you're like, what the heck? Well, I didn't see the other 23 hours and 55 minutes of the day that may have contributed to that moment that I was part of, right? So I just find that sometimes kind words or gentleness or professionalism, being courteous, giving people a benefit of the doubt and the communication is always something, it reduces the stress sometimes. There was a book I read too called How to Win, what's it called? How to Win Friends and Influence People? No. How to Stop Worrying and Start Living.
Yeah.
Dale Carnegie, though, still Dale Carnegie. If you ever read the book, get the pre-1975 version, because it took some things out for the modern day that they really should keep in there, because they didn't want to offend people in some way, which I thought was a mistake. But basically, it was the premise of that book was we spend 95 to 98% of our time worrying about things that either aren't real, or just perceptions, or that never happened. That's the premise of the book. And as you read through just that, how to stop worrying and start living, if you can stop worrying about some things and just you can start living a little bit, because that just sort of gets in the way. So it kind of plays into this stuff too. So I just came across that this morning, and I want to share it at some level. I know it's not always why you're coming in here. That's my mom calling me. Should put her on FaceTime. Yeah.
I got a question about new construction.
Shifting gears, downshifting.
It's okay. And then we met the builder on the 9th. We wrote the offer on the 5th. And met the builder on the 9th to discuss, how the buyers superstitious, Chinese buyers. And then they deposited loan, 30,000 earnest money upon buyer approve the elevation. And then on the same day, the buyer hit the office. Had an accident when they stopped their car.
He drove into their office?
Drove into the office, the window broke. It's, I guess around, maybe with the business, maybe around, I used to be an insurance agent. I guess it should be under 20,000 if it should be all covered. But anyway, that's the insurance part. But then the buyer called me on Sunday night, 9, 10, 11, on a Sunday to want to terminate the transaction. Now, as of today, I check and still not reply from the builder about signing the paper. So I just wonder what you have.
There's no way I can answer that question effectively. There's too many
I
other
tried to call
questions.
you and send you a message on Sunday night on the 11th.
I didn't have any caller ID from you. I didn't see any call come in, sorry.
So
That's the one we've been working on. Did you
Yeah,
send it?
so there's too many questions on that, and it probably is an eye of the beholder. Just kidding. There's too many questions to answer that right now. I have to ask you a lot of questions, look at some documents. But in the end, if the buyer and seller have to agree to the disposition of a deposit, and I can see how a seller, wait a minute, you deposited 30,000 and you ran into my building, and now you're terminating. We got some things to sort out here.
the insurance part, take care of the building part.
Yeah. Okay, that's great. I can't answer I can't really address.
No, I'm talking about the 30,000 earnest money.
I understand. I'm just saying that there's a lot of perceptions and feelings and directions going in here, and there's a lot of, I have to look at I'd have to ask a lot more questions to be able to address that.
Automobile insurance company ought to be involved in that.
It sounds like the insurance company already took care of it. And she just said they took care of it, so that's great. Yes?
Well, I just wanted to comment that we are all going through things in our lives too while we're doing these transactions. And I was quite alarmed when I was doing a transaction a year ago, and the gal that I was dealing with wouldn't communicate fast enough for me. I thought she should be on it. We were nip and tuck on the time frame and everything. So finally she writes me this email. She says, "I'm so sorry that I'm being delayed on responding to you, but my brother just committed suicide and I can't even function."
Oh, yeah.
So, it's just that kind of stuff that I went, oh my gosh, I'm gonna give her more grace. We ended up dealing with the transaction. I had the listing and she was the buyer agent. So it went through, but it was horrible. Horrible.
Yeah, and that nothing makes you feel worse than giving someone a hard time for not getting back to you than say, well, my brother just committed suicide.
Yeah, it was.
Oh.
Yeah.
And there's something to be said about what's the golden rule? Do unto others, as you expected. And there's always more to the story. Always. always more to the story, and some people, you wonder why some people are just so dang cranky in a transaction that we're dealing with. They're always just cranky. Well, there's likely a lot of life experiences that either brought them there or some in the moment that brought them there. And so I just think it's good. That's good. I'm glad you shared that. Along those lines, just it made me think of Dave Boson. Can I say that? Okay. I don't know the details, so fill in. But one of our agents over the weekend had a heart attack. Last Thursday. He's okay now, but had a heart attack and died at the hospital. They brought him back. Very close. So, just as you said that, I wanted to mention that. Hopefully that was okay. Did I miss anything in that?
No, he's doing fine. He's just recovering.
You might appreciate a ping or just a text or just anything.
Who is it?
Dave Boso. Yeah, those are the Dave Boso.
Yeah.
So he's doing a lot of manufactured homes in Park stuff. Anyway.
Oh, okay.
Well, and he called me and sounded so chipper. He's like, "Hey, I got a message from you, Denise. How's it going?" I'm like, and he tells me that. I'm like, "Oh my God."
Why aren't you distressed? But anyway, so I don't know, just for whatever it's worth, I wanted to share that and maybe help us all relax a little bit, because real estate can be stressful and yeah, please.
Just to add on to it, in the 2 years that I've been doing lots of training and learning the business, the biggest thing that I've learned is to, like, we're the third party, we gotta take the emotion out of the big emotion for our clients and the other clients too. And to take their words and their frustrations and take a deep breath and relay it responsibly to the next person.
Well said.
Yep, very well said.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a big part of it. And we are information sharers. Did I hear my name? No. We're a conduit, right? And that's what we need to be, is a conduit of information. And it's not our decision, it's not our emotion. They need, in these transactions, they have life things going on, and they're buying a house, and divorce, death, and buying a house. We handle how many transactions? We close a couple hundred transactions a month, so doing homes is like, whatever. It's kind of just what we do. It's like breathing. Sometimes it's easy to lose sight of the fact that that person in the moment is the first time they've ever done it, or it's the first time in 7 years they've done it. And so they need the stable person. They need the calm person helping them through that, understanding and explaining things, and then saying, what would you like to do? I'll pass it on. And not go telling the other agent, well, we're not going to accept this, and don't put yourself in that position. Right, anyway, so well said. Tommy, had your hand up.
I just wanted to share that, well taken about we all have our own personal things going on, but yet we have to separate that and go into helping our buyers and sellers. But with the agents within and our friends, it's so important to remember to come alongside, our fellow people that we work with, and to be sensitive and to see if you can help them through what they're going through, to ease that pain, so they can move forward and do what they're here to do. So.
I'll tell a little personal story. This is the one I was trying to remember, and it kind of plays into what the last three of you, Melanie, and you guys have said. When I was in college, there was a professor. He's a professor of religion at the university I was at, and his son one night committed suicide, put a gun to his chest, and then the rumors were flying. What's wrong in that household? Is he really religious? Is he? There's just comments. There's all these people questioning things, and I myself said, "Wow, I wonder, what's wrong that he would have." I kind of got pulled into it too, and then then the rest, as often happens in those situations, the rest of the story comes out right after a few days, and it turns out he was suffered with severe depression and was on medications, and he didn't like taking the medications because it made him feel even worse, and so he just chose not to take the medications in that state, couldn't deal with it. Does that lend a lot more perspective? Just kind of, yeah. And first of all, why would we judge anyone for doing that, right? Who are we to say, shame on you for doing that? We shouldn't even do that, right? It's sad and tragic when those kind of things happen. It's horrible. But it's not a time where people need to have others outside piling on by saying stuff. They just need support, right? In times of loss, whatever the source. But it wasn't a big deal. I didn't get caught in it, but mentally I got caught up into it. And then I felt a little chastised when I got the rest of the story. and I did it to I chastised myself, and I actually wrote a paper on it, and I called it Judge Not. And it was like a 6-page paper that I wrote for a college about the experience I had through that and how important it wasn't to judge and how often you don't know the whole story, and sometimes there's reasons and causes that we don't understand. And why would we, Melody's, why would we sit here as anyone and judge? That's why they did this. That's ridiculous. That's not what the world needs, right? The world needs more compassion, more understanding, more empathy, more. We need to go the other direction. We've gone too far the other way, in my opinion. But this isn't a bragging statement, but I wrote that paper, and the professor, when it came to time for us to get we had to go to his office to get our papers, he wouldn't give it to me. And he said, can I read this today? And I went, in the class? I'm like, okay. Now I'm really nervous. So he wouldn't give me my paper, and I'm thinking, what did I do wrong? Well, he read it, he bawled through the whole thing. Because it was a life lesson paper, and it kind of was illustrated. This is a this is what I was looking for from you guys. And he couldn't get through it. He's just, here we are at a college room with 70 people, and he's just blubbering. And so I don't say that in a prideful way, but it had a deep impact. It was very important and a really important life lesson, I think, that kind of plays into all this. We don't know why someone could have said, you know what, it doesn't matter, right? We don't know why this person's having a bad day. Ultimately, it doesn't really matter. It's just, how can I can choose how I respond to it, right? And I can choose to respond this way, or this way. And so you get to make a choice. I'm going to respond and try and be compassionate. I'm going to try and be understanding. I'm going to try and be, or I'm going to choose to file an agency complaint. But anyway, I'm being ridiculous in examples here, but yeah.
So I just wanted to say something. This leads into a client, not a client, a fellow worshiper at my church has he's a Vietnam veteran, somewhere around our age, has adopted 4 children, an 8-year-old Down syndrome girl, an autistic boy, and 2 other children. And he's having to leave Vancouver and move out here to Hillsborough. He was just hospitalized with some kind of an infection in his blood. His wife just had knee surgery, and they're homeless. And I'm thinking maybe his only job is going to be out here in Hillsborough, so they're having to move out here. And maybe we can start a fund for that family. On the note that we're all talking about.
So we do have the More Gifts Foundation, which I haven't got the emails out yet about how you can donate. There's also a GoFundMe thing you can do too. A lot of people do that. GoFundMe, you go create that for free, and you get a link and everything. You're broadcasted out with the story and everything in the picture. That might be a really appropriate thing to do too for a family like that, because you might reach out to people that you share it in the church, for example, and they could broadcast it out and put it on social media, and sometimes those things get some legs under them. We don't have, I think we have the More Gifts Foundation for funds for things like this. We haven't launched it out where there's not a lot there right now. So there's sort of 2 answers there. But if I were you, you could go do a GoFundMe for them today.
There are so many people like that. We have a lady in our church. Her son committed suicide last week, but it's the 4th one in the family.
Fourth
the last
suicide?
year.
Oh my God.
This woman is devastated.
Well, that's the other thing too, is whatever problems you feel you might have, you don't have to go very far to find something that makes you appreciate your challenges. Right? And there but for the grace of God go I kind of thing. And and you all know I had a son die in a car accident, but I had a lot of people that would come up to me and ask for advice on something, and they'd look at me and go, I was going to ask for some advice, but you know what, never mind. Just knowing what you're going through, put my challenge in perspective, I'm good. So you don't have to go very far to look and find someone so you put your life in perspective, but also, I don't know, it's just a thing of mine that I think that people need to be reaching out more or figuring how to do that more with people.
What's the name of that book that you're talking about?
How to Stop Worrying and Start Living?
Yeah.
Dale Carnegie. The other one he wrote is How to Win Friends and Influence People.
Right.
How to Stop Worrying and Start Living just kind of helps you kind of reset why am I worrying about this? That's not even an issue. I'm worrying about it for the wrong reasons, right? That's kind of
Yeah,
what it is.
yeah.
Anyway.
And then to get the one, you're saying get the one that's before 1975?
Probably, if you can find one. It was written back in the 50s.
What's his name again?
Dale Carnegie.
Bill?
Dale.
Dale.
D-A-L-E, Carnegie. Carnegie.
Try Booktique.
Yeah.
They buy and sell used books.
Yep.
And,
It's
they
a small
used to
book.
be-
It's only
they
about
used-
that thick.
They used to be in Mercantile, and of course,
That'd be a good-
Mercantile is
yeah.
now gone, and I'm not sure where they went.
I don't remember what chapter they pulled out in the later versions, but they pulled something out or rewrote it for the modern day, and I'm like, what? That was really relevant, important information.
They did that for How to Win Friends and Influence People too.
Yeah.
But more bent towards technology. They've updated.
Oh, yeah. Some books that have been around will do that from time to time. Anyway, I didn't mean to get too far off on a path with this, but.
Thank you, Paul.
We
but
need it.
Denise, do you have anything to add to this? Denise and I have been around forever on this and seen so many people and so many life experiences individually and together and amongst all of you. We kind of have a unique perspective on stuff.
I would just say be careful on social media because people can assume you're saying it in one way when you don't really mean it that way. And I have an example of last week, Heather had sent an email as a listing, we're representing the listing agent over to the buyer's agent, and she asked her if she'd already ordered the home warranty. And the girl comes back and says, "Are you trying to tell me how to do my job? I feel like you're trying to school me."
And it was just a question.
And she was just asking the question. She goes, "Well, I'll order it. I just wanted to know that you didn't order it ahead of time, so I don't waste my time doing it." And and then Heather put a smiley face, and she responded and said, "Well, I'm just glad you were trying to school me." And it's like, why do you have to read all that?
Oh, she must have had a bad evening.
Well, I don't know.
Yeah.
Some people just do work
She got
that way.
scolded,
That's how
huh?
they respond. And there's no reason for it.
There are
But-
people who live their lives trying to be victims. Their
Well, and I
entire
think in
life.
social media though, if you don't, if you say it a certain way, some people, like for instance, when I say a K on a text message to my daughter, she thinks I'm mad at her because I just put a K, when in reality, I was just in a hurry and didn't spell out okay. So evidently you have to be worrying about that too, if you don't know the ins and outs of technology.
Yeah, the world has become a far more sensitive place, but in the wrong direction. I think we need to be sensitive to people and helping, not sensitive like, why'd you say that? Like this agent. It just, I read the email, like, what? Why would she even go there? That didn't make any sense.
That's another thing that we need to have a meeting on is who orders a home warranty?
Yeah.
Chelsea gave me a good answer, and you can answer this question, is because is it the listing agent or is the buyer's agent more likely to do it?
Well, I think Eric covered it last week in the meeting. Anybody really can order the home warranty. But typically I see the buyer's agent order them most often because they will provide the names of the buyers,
Right.
phone numbers and contact information.
Right.
So.
Unless it's set up under, well, even if it's set up under the listing, it still needs to be passed forward.
Yeah, but anybody essentially could order it.
But her response was, well, the seller's paying for it, so you should order it. And then, but me, in my experience of ordering home warranties, if I order on the buyer's behalf and we don't have their contact information, then I don't know what to give them. So I give them the agent's email, so that means all of their information, the certificate, invoice, and everything goes to the agent, not to the client. And then you have to go back and fix that information. So, plus, if the buyer wants to do an upgrade on the home warranty, when they're ordering, then they can.
Yeah, that was a follow on to that email before. Heather finally said, "Okay, I'll place your order. Here it is, the $285 version."
Right.
Oh, wait a minute, we upgraded. We wanted an upgrade. Okay, why didn't you just order it?
Yeah.
Why are we going back and forth on this? So it turns out it was the wrong product anyway, and
Right.
had they just done it on themselves, they would have got the right thing.
But another thing to watch out and be aware is make sure you check in, if you're a buyer's agent and you haven't seen an invoice or anything, because we've had at least 3 in the last week of people saying, well, where did the home warranty come from? You were supposed to order it. No, you were supposed to order it, and then it didn't get ordered, and escrow is not checking to make sure that it's ordered. It was part of the sale agreement. It should have been ordered, but they didn't do it. So now where are you? Now who does what at this point? This happened like 3 times last week.
Yep.
So
This wouldn't close without the home warranty on it. It was part of the agreement.
So be aware, you guys are the ones that, if the buyer's agents are asking it for your client, make sure their client gets it.
It's really should be caught at closing if it's not there.
Yeah.
But as a buyer, if there's a home warranty included and you're on a buy side, don't assume the seller is going to do it. Just do it, right? Because you have the contact information.
If you call in to do it and the address is already put in, they'll say it's
They'll
already
take, yeah.
ordered.
There's no waste of time there. It's like, well, we already got one on file. Like, okay, it's already there. So it's anyway. So good advice. But back to her point, Denise's point too, is here in an email, this gal's reading an email like, "Why are you trying to educate me on my job? Who are you?" Like,
We get that a lot as transaction coordinators, just so you know.
I do see people showing up for the class at 11:30, so we're going to. Anything else as we close?
Just that we appreciate all the teaching moments you take for us.
Yes, yes.
And we
Yes.
appreciate our more agent camaraderie and working together. I've never seen such a great group of brokers working together continuously.
Yes.
Well, thank you.
I think it all comes right from these two right here. Denise and Paul.
And you said it in the right. You said it in the right order. Denise and Paul. You know what? We all bring things, right? So yes, we started it almost 5 years ago now. We've both brought experiences and talents and skills together, and it worked really well, and we feed off each other really well, and so.
We love your love. We love your love and compassion.
Yep, we do.
Okay, thank you. We're ending now.
Okay.